A couple years ago, I was on a flight by myself. I was sitting quietly in my chair, relaxing before takeoff, just reading a book, and suddenly a man just appeared next to me, sat down without saying hello, without acknowledging me, without looking at me even. That man was probably in his mid-40s. He had a long, dark beard, and as the flight attendants prepared the plane to take off, the man started mumbling to himself in Arabic. He was shaking and sweating profusely and shifting in his chair a lot. The plane began its takeoff and the man started mumbling to himself stronger and stronger. I was sitting next to him completely terrified. I didn't know what the hell to do with myself. All I could think about was just to focus on my breathing. 5 in, 5 out. Breathe in, breathe out. The only thing I could do to not lose my mind. But as I was focusing on my breath, I suddenly noticed on my lap the book that I was reading beforehand, and I noticed one specific line that I marked for myself to read. When fear is present in us, we bring awareness to it. We smile to it and call it by its true name. I noticed that the man that was sitting next to me was looking over at the book that I was holding in my hands, and without thinking twice, I offered it to him. I just said, "It's a great book." The man took the book in his hands, looked over at me and asked me, "What's it about?" And I answered, "It's about peace." The man looked at the book, read it a little bit, and then looked back at me and asked me, "Where are you from?" And although I was still scared, I took a deep breath and I looked back at him and said, "I'm from Israel." He got quiet for a moment, but then he said that the media in his country portrays Israelis as evil people. But here we are, the both of us, sharing a book about peace. We both smiled in relief, and before I knew it, this man that was a complete, terrifying stranger to me just 10 minutes ago was sharing with me pictures of his home and his family, and even one very, very personal fact about him. He was afraid of flying. I remember myself at 12 years old, sitting in my living room and watching the live broadcast of the airplanes hitting the World Trade Center at 9/11. I remember how much fear I felt from uncertainty, from not knowing who did this. And I remember the newspapers that followed that day that were filled with pictures of men that looked exactly like that man that sat next to me on the airplane. Our real power as human beings is our ability to become mindful in a situation and to see the whole picture, to acknowledge the fear that runs us from the inside and to choose to act differently when we can. So maybe we can take the 15th anniversary of 9/11 as a reminder to ourselves that change has to begin with us and that we have so much power because we are truly, truly in this together.
Oh my god, and we totally jumped off the cliff and had to swim all the way to shore because the dog chased us all the way to the end. Oh.
Assalamu alaikum and a very good evening. I wish to myself. My name is Muhammad and today I'm going to talk about on our topic, which is unity. Specifically on our topic, we are trying to explain more about Islamophobia, but I know that it's a very sensitive issue. So we try to tackle it in a more positive way, so we put it on unity. And in our presentation, we are going to tell about two main things. Firstly is what is the causes of racism, and secondly, how to use a countermeasure in order to solve the problem. So from my perspective, the first cause of racism is actually environmental and political belief. So what does this word actually mean? So by definition, environmental is something that we live around and we develop during the early stage until we can become an adult. And political belief is whatever things that have been told you since you were a kid, and that memory or that thought came along the way when you are growing up. So when these two things are the main factor, why? For example, if you grown up in a household full of only one race, so you're only going to understand one race, and in order for you to be discriminating other race will be at a high risk because you are being taught that the other race are not as superior as yours, or you are not being told to be sensitive to the other race since you only involve yourself in only one person. So this theory can be supported by and Dr. Nancy Krieger, which from Harvard University, she said that we literally embody biologically and societally and ecologically conditions which we grow up and develop and live, and we became only susceptible to ourselves. which means if we do not try to explore the other person, we are not trying to understand other people, not being open-minded to understand all of the other races, we will become close-minded and start to develop racism in ourselves. So, on the counterpart of this method, since we know that being exposed towards only one thing is bad, so how we are going to counter it? So in context in Malaysia, the best way for me that I can think of is we mix and try to understand all of the races that exist in the world so that we can understand their cultural belief and also their cultural appropriation. For example, in Malaysia, if you send your child into a one-race school, there are high probability that they won't understand the other races technique, the other races religion, the other races act and everything, so they won't understand and they won't try to mix around or mingle around with the other races, resulting only they believe in their own races. So, if we send our kids to school with mixed races, they will try to make friends with other people and lastly will unite and become unity. Not only that, it's not all about just going and talking to other person. Maybe we can also watch a video, try to understand them and not being too judgmental towards them. As we know every race, every person and every belief have a different method and have a different kind of sensitivity. So if we understand this, we're trying to learn from the cultural aspect of everyone, we can respect and also we can know how to tackle a person or to see an issue from a broad spectrum so that we won't become a racist person. And in Malaysia, luckily we are on a salad bowl type of relationship, which means we know that there are different races and different cultural aspects in Malaysia and we need to respect each other based on different beliefs, and it's okay to agree and disagree at the same time, because we cannot expect unity, everyone to say yes, because that is the harmony of unity. And I believe being a salad bowl and know how to agree and disagree at the same time is the best way to become to be united as a person and as a society. That's all for me.
I'm going to talk about the second causes of racism, which is media keep portraying negativity. Media can be classified into the newspaper, film, or social media itself. So in terms of, when we talk about, for example, like Islamophobia, the racism of the religious, or in racism in the races. For example, media, in terms of movie, there's also a few movie that is make a movie that shows how bad is Islam, or that shows that how bad is for example, Black American on that times when they kill white peoples. And there was one movie which is 12 Years of Slave, also represent the racism when the Black American was being tortured by the English people and have been made as a slave just because of it is black. This is one example of racism in terms of color. Besides that, for example, last years ago, which is Malaysian have been Prime Minister of Malaysia have been organized which Congress, a Malay Congress. He also has been labelled by a racism just because of the Congress was made by the just made to the Malay. This one example which is the reason he excused, because, and this also indicates that the social media of the newspaper have false stated what his the purpose of the Congress is. And then this besides that, also social media influencers, for example, like the most prominent is Instagrammers. They just also keep promoting racism just because of they get the money from. Usually racism in terms of media, it's used by the politicians, and then the second one, and then because of that, we as a whole need to overcome this issues. For example, in Malaysia, we talk in terms of Malaysia, we have Malaysian Multimedia and Communication Commissions, which is regulates our media from spread hatred about the other races or being racisms. Besides that, our Besides that, our Constitution of Malaysia also states that there should not be any racisms or any hatred that being spreaded by the media social itself, because we need to regulate our media from spread hatred about the other races or being racisms. Besides that, our Constitution of Malaysia also states that there should not be any racisms or any hatred that being spreaded by the media social itself, because we need to protect each other. And also that this is one example that Malaysia do in terms of we want to control the message of racism itself. So thank you for me.
Assalamualaikum and very good morning to everyone. Racism. When we talk about racism, there must many negative perspective in our society. Today, basically, racism is a very hot and popular issue being talked in our society worldwide. And the most cases stated in the racism is racism based on religions. Okay, what is the causes? What is the main causes of this action? Is because of a bad and false interpretation of certain group of people towards the history of other group of people. Because of what? Certain isolation towards certain group of people happen in our society today because of the bad past or the bad history. For example, a simple racism noted in today's situation is Islamophobia, which is a frightened and phobia towards the Muslim community. They assume that the history such as war mask this community until today. Because of this history, Muslim community being stated as a terrorist and cause the other human being to see the bad things in this community. It is not such a good manner towards this group of people. There's no difference between us, because there's no difference between us because we all know that we all are human beings. We must promote unity among us without being considerate about our religion, skin color, stereotyping and many more, because we are one. And when we talk about the problem, we must find a solution or many solutions to solve this problem. The main action that we can take is to promote and tell the true facts about the history. They may war because they may war happens in the past because certain empire or certain empire want to shape or form a proud territory and promote prosperity among the slave, and so that the war happens, such as Romanian Empire, Persian Empire and Turkey Osmania. So basically, war in the bad past, which is being a negative perspective in today's society, is not only for prosperity of other people but more to peace. And the war is not for only violence, because we seek peace through war. I want to end my part of my presentation with a quote being quoted from President of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. He stated that, "Are you ever listened about Buddhist terrorists, Christian terrorists, or Hindu terrorists, even atheist terrorists? You must be not listen to that matters, because when a doer is a Muslim, he or she will be considered as Muslim terrorists. That's not such a good manner because this is because when the doer is Muslim, the religious is misstated. So this is certain part of the global Islamophobia. That's all from me.
Wabarakatuh and very good morning to the viewers, and it's still morning when I'm recording this video. Well, my name is Shami bin Saimi, and I guess you already know why I'm taking such an effort to record this video. And yes, you're right, I guess. The purpose of me taking this video is none less to discuss with all of you the causes and the way to overcome the racism. Yes, racism, you heard it right. And I believe that all of my teammates already discussed their part in the previous minute, and I guess it's my turn. Before we start our discussion, I would like to ask all of you a really simple question, and I hope that all of you can answer it because it's really a simple, short question. And here goes by: when did all of you or somebody you know ever said something hurtful to anybody else just because of your differences? No, it's such a loaded question, I realize, so I make it easier for you. Xenophobia. Xenophobia is a fancy sounding word which really have a deepful meaning, and by definition is really impactful to ourselves, human being, as xenophobia is a fear to the people that not you. Yes, it is a people that's not used. And sadly to say that xenophobia is already become a diseases in our today's society, as xenophobia is actually the part of human nature, and xenophobia, it is what make us human. Why I would like to say that? Because we human tend to seek for the differences, because I believe that what will make us feel so special. But I guess in the end, xenophobia really does give a really bad result. As you can see in the world nowadays, in the modern world nowadays, there are a lot of discrimination happen just because of the differences in human being, and I guess a really bad thing. And we, yes, me including all of you viewers, must take a step, must take a preventing action to overcome this problem. And for me, I think one of the easiest way to overcome the xenophobia is actually to being confident and being brave by yourself. And being confident and being brave, what I meant is not being confident with your trait, but is to be meant is to be confident in interacting with another people with different trait from you. And I believe when everyone in the world become confident and brave to talk their experiences, to share their story with one another without taking their differences so seriously, I guess that we can prevent this problem and live in a peaceful harmony living, I guess. So the next thing that can be made to prevent this racism and xenophobia is actually by respecting the other culture, and by knowing and learning by the other culture can really helpful by preventing this problem. As you can see that you can also enjoy their culture and also be one of their friend, be more close to each other, that all of you actually can, I guess, respectful to each other, that you all of you can finally get this mutual understanding that there will be no more discrimination or no more hatred toward each other actually when all of you actually understand each other. And I guess that's all for me. Thank you for mm, watching this video, I guess.
So let's move on to the next cause of racism, which is stereotyping across intersections of race and religion. In social physiology, a stereotype is an overgeneralized belief about a particular category of people. It is an expectation that people might have about every person of a particular group. The type of expectation may vary. It can be, for example, an expectation about the group personality, preferences, or ability. Stereotyping typically involves attributing the same characteristic to all members of a group regardless of individual differences. It is often based on misconceptions, incomplete information, or false generalizations. In most cases, stereotypes assume negative characteristics about a group. Next, we need to understand how stereotyping occurs. Firstly, the things we hear or see or learn from other people and the broader society create stereotypes. But what does it mean? Let's take it this way. Well, we all learn from what we hear, what we see from others, isn't it? However, the only problem is most of us don't even bother to validate it whether it's true or not. So, we make assumptions that all we hear is true, even though it is a negative thing. I will give some examples later on. The nature of someone being judgmental about other people also creates stereotypes. But wait, isn't it good to be judgmental? Yeah, of course it is. But it also depends on particular circumstances, right? Because I believe that it may lead to discrimination. Let's relate things that we have discussed just now to our true discussion. There are four important points that we need to ponder. First, generalization. Second, research for validity. Third, being judgmental. And four, bad assumptions. So, in our cases, we are going to talk on how these points could cause racial and religion stereotyping and ways to overcome it. Remember just now I said that we learn from what we see and hear, but we don't even bother to validate it. This kind of thing is actually really common nowadays since we have various platforms to share information, or I could say fake information. Here comes the power of viral. Let's take Twitter for example. There are so many misleading tweets on Twitter that were intended to grow fear or prejudice against Islam, or in other words, to nurture Islamophobia. Well, to be honest, this actually should not be a problem if we care to validate that it is actually misleading tweet. Unfortunately, it doesn't occur. So, people would have believed to that and this leads to bad assumptions against Muslim, especially in Malaysia. So, how do we solve this? Well, it's simple. We must validate everything we read. There are so many official websites that could be referred, such as MCMC, and also we make sure that we read articles from authentic authors. Next, remember my point just now regarding being judgmental. Well, yes, being judgmental is good, but do not discriminate other people based on our assumptions. We need to get to know them first before judging them. But of course, everything that we think of them, we need to keep it only to ourselves. Well, I think that's everything on stereotyping.